better Nigeria? Is it a myth or do we keep hoping?
Nigeria is a highly religious country. How come corruption thrives?
Why is adoption not encouraged in Nigeria?
Is there a future for the Nigerian youth?
Being rich and famous, is that the only drive to be an artist?
What makes a great nation? Is it the leaders? What about the people?
This is Answers with Dr. Reju.
Hi, this is Answers with Dr. Reju, where critical life issues are clarified. My name is Obi, and with me in the studio today, we have Dr. Reju.
Thank you, Obi.
As usual, this is Answers with Dr. Reju. He has to be here. We have Matthew.
Thank you, Obi.
We're continuing with parenting. Today, we have two special guests with us in the studio. One of them is Jedi. Jedi, say hi.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. And we have Dafe.
Good morning.
The questions being asked here are not the questions of Jedi and Dafe. The questions from a pool of teenagers and adolescents that we've collected. And so Jedi and Dafe will just be asking it on their behalf, right? And then we'll see what Dr. Reju can make of those questions.
Why do parents keep children away from stuff that they know children will definitely have access to it behind their backs?
Well, we want to first of all establish that it's going to be a difficult one for me here because I don't know if I'm going to be holding brief for parents, but I've been a parent for many years. But first of all, we need to establish whether the parents know they can access it.
Okay.
Behind their backs. And that is what JD is asking here is a wake-up call to parents, right? And I believe maybe we mentioned that in the episodes that we've had, that parents need to take time to enter the world of their children. They need to know, because he's saying now that what my parents are trying to get away from me, I can actually access it behind their backs. Yeah. So that's a so I don't think the parents will want to keep it away from you if they know you can access it behind their backs. I don't think that's the reality here. So that's why I said this is a wake-up call to parents. What you are trying to get to restrict your word from, are you aware that he or she can actually access it behind your back? Maybe we give an example of, say, what? JD? Maybe what, the YouTube video, and then you are trying to keep him or her away from YouTube video, and you buy a smartphone. And you buy a smartphone for him or her, and there is internet access. So it's very, very, maybe I'll talk to the teenagers, I'll talk to to these young ones first, about, and that's going to be the like the backdrop for all the answer I'm going to give to all those kind of questions. Because the intention here is to let you guys understand your parents. That first of all, you have to know the motive why your parents are trying to restrict you for some things. Why they give the kind of counsel, why they act the way they act. And we need to establish that the motive primarily, the action might be wrong, perceived to be wrong, all right, but you have to first of all understand the motive why your parents will act, will say the things they say. The motive primarily is love. Whatever you are you are keeping away from your kids, is it foolproof? Right? Is it foolproof? Do you know it? I was teaching somewhere, and these lecturers were complaining about their students. It was in a university down south. And this woman who happens to be the chaplain of this university said, all these students, they will always have earpiece in their ears and they walk around. I said, madam, have you ever taken time to ask any of those students to let you listen to what they listen to? How do you know it's bad? How do you know it's not that that student brought her phone to the class and recorded your lecture and she's listening to it? So parents have a lot of prejudices. They just sort of take positions without any credible evidence. It's as if there is a default position that whatever these young ones do is wrong. So that's how we come. So while I'm talking to the young ones to be able to understand where their parents are coming from, parents also need to understand that not everything teenagers, young ones, adolescents engaged in are bad. So how do we really solve that kind of problem? There needs to be an engagement. I said it also in one of the episodes when I was talking about parenting, that we need to know when to talk to our children and when to begin to talk with them.
Yeah.
When we begin to talk with them, let's share their life. Let's enter their world.
All right, Daffy.
I'd like to know why parents are not comfortable with talking to their children about sex. I mean, they seem to shy away from it.
Well,
Okay.
well, it's very sad that in our generation, sex has become something that we consider to be secret. But I say that the fact that the five of us are in this room is a confirmation that sex happened. It's as simple as that. It's as obvious as that.
Yeah.
If it's possible to hide a woman that's pregnant, then we can begin to talk about sex as something that shouldn't be spoken about in public. But the point is this: at what age and at what level should we begin to talk about sex?
Yeah.
At what age? At what level? In what way? Because whatever people learn, in an inaccurate, in an unorthodox way, it is the only option is to abuse it.
Yeah.
If we make our teenagers, our adolescents to see sex as something that is inherently bad, then, and because we have perceived it to be inherently bad, the natural tendency is to hide it from them. And then whatever you hide from people, we don't know, parents don't know that you only succeed in arousing their curiosity.
Particularly in our day and age when the media and entertainment is all about that. And, so it's even, those guys are even teaching them, about sex.
Absolutely.
In not very accurate ways.
In not accurate ways.
At all.
Because there's something I say, especially because we live in a world now where there are a lot of movies. And every movie, even if they're whatever, especially, you mentioned the media. If the media is going to advertise battery, it will be sex oriented. If they're going to advertise biscuits, there will be a sex undertone there.
Yeah.
So you see, for me, and what I counsel is, let's be so open with it, the same way those who are negative about it are open with it, right? I'll give the example of a movie. What most parents do: you're watching a movie, it gets to a point, a woman is trying to kiss a man, and then you change the channel. That child will be wondering, why did they change the channel? What is there for me not to see? I believe that such times it presents us an opportunity to say, that which you are seeing there is right. That which you are seeing there is wrong. Because, you see, movies don't just entertain. They come to educate. They come to, illuminate. They come to give you a worldview. They come to give you an understanding. That's why I say for movies, it's not really what you look at, it's what you see. So movies, for example, can be a time of family get-together, where we don't just watch the movie, but we want to engage it, right? We want to be able to dialogue with the movie. And let me talk to teenagers. If you think your parents are very secretive about it, and you are hearing it from other places, read in the book or whatever, because maybe in our days, the first time we heard about sex was the biology class. But that's no longer that. It's no longer like that. It's no longer like that. So if you see that, be bold enough to ask your parents. Because I tell you, when you don't ask your parents, you're already buying into something that is secret, that is negative. You're already seeing it as something that they shouldn't know. And if there are people you shouldn't hide things from, your parents come first. That you shouldn't hide anything from. Because the point is, your teachers might have a great influence on you, but they can't love you as much as your parents. Right? They can't love you as much as... If there are people, it's better to come and they say, where did you hear that from? And then there's a hole. And then look for another opportunity again. This is what I'm seeing. Right? That's my counsel to you. But, and then for parents, when you hear such things, don't let your initial... Even if you're afraid, please hide it. Don't let your initial response be one of fear. It's as if something has gone wrong here. Man, that a child will come forward to come and discuss that, it means he's curious about something. And you know that you have a good child on your hands. So I told someone very, very close to me who got pregnant as a teenager. I said, good girls don't get pregnant. I mean, bad girls don't get pregnant because they know what to do. So I said, for this, I know that there's still some element of good in you.
But Dr. Reggie, there's still another spin to this. I walk up to my dad and I tell him, I've been hearing about sex. Can you tell me about sex? And then he considers sex education to be, don't engage in sexual activities. Don't. And then at the end of the day, I get a very long list of don'ts. And then I go not really even knowing about sex. So how would you, advise parents to respond?
The issue here, like I said before, is a lot of parents, parenting happen on them. Nobody goes to school to learn how to parent, right? Most people parent the way they were parented. They don't ask a lot of questions. In our society, we don't relate with our parents, but that, I believe, is changing. But if you look at the percentage of parents who are really active parents today, they are still in a generation where they didn't have a lot of relationship with their parents. Mainly. So, but that now we are now parenting children. We have to understand that we are not the only ones. Because parenting is about influence. We are not the only ones influencing these children. We have to first of all come to that reality. So that positions us that we live in a very dynamic world here. So when a child comes to talk to you about sex, first of all, in the quietness, in the corner of your room, know that you have failed or you are failing. Because your child must know about sex first from you. You must know about sex first from you. That your child is taking the initiative, you skipped a class. Let that dawn on you. If he had to come to you, you skipped a class. So it's my advice to parents is that in this world, in this globalized world where everything is interconnected, there are no more secrets. Let that dawn on everybody. From a little device called a phone, you can reach the farthest part in the world in seconds. And internet is going to get better here in Nigeria. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. So you have to. There is no secret. Whatever your word knows today, know that, or what you think he doesn't know. Like the question JD asked, that why hiding maybe Facebook? Don't be on Facebook, and you buy a smartphone. Because a lot of parents, I'm sorry to say, they are ignorant of the world that their kids live in. They are ignorant, and that's an emergency. That's an emergency. To play defense today, if I'm allowed to say, it's fruitless. It won't work. What you are not telling your kid, television is telling. I always give an example I had years ago. I was teaching a group of youth couples, on marriage, on dating and all those kind of things. And I asked them, how many of you, they were a session of about maybe 500, 600. I said, how many of you did your parent, they sat you down? Because like you mentioned, sex is not just about having intercourse. How many of you that your parents sat you down, you girls, they told you about menstrual cycle? You boys, they told you about, something that's going to happen to you. Maybe you begin to have wet dreams. Something happened to your voice. They explained that to you before it happened. Only about 3 in a session of about 600 people. So I said, okay, how many of you, I mean, it's obvious, many of you here today, you're all graduates, you're already having normal menstrual cycle, all of you, you've come age of puberty. How did you know it? It's one from a novel, from a friend, from TV, in a seminar. Only 3 learned it from their parents. You see, that should change. That should change. Because today, I mean, my second daughter began her menstrual cycle at age 12. Age 12. Right? That was pretty early. So if we didn't even know that was what was going to happen, she was just having pains. You know, she was having pains, she was just having stomach pains. We took her to the hospital, you know, and the doctor just said, come to think of it, how old are you? He said, because what I'm seeing is as if you're about menstruating. That's, you know. But by the time the doctor mentioned that, she knew what menstruation is all about. Because of my experience while I was in school. Because I had a lot of girls, I always give the joke, you know, in my sessions about the girl who got up from class and she was all wet. And we were in French class. This is very funny. And then we gave her a name, Ojo Dilatab. You know? And that wrecked her. Because it was so embarrassing. So when those kind of signs are coming, she must have known. A boy who woke up in the morning and the pants are wet because something came out, right? He must know what exactly is going on because the parents must have prepared us. Some of them, they learned it from seniors in school. So this is the reality of our world.
Wow.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. Let's take a break here, a very short break, and we'll be back.
There are cooking oils and there are cooking oils, you know. Of course. There are those that foam like soap when you put them on fire. And there are those that go to sleep after a few days. There are even those with funny odors that make neighbors wonder what's happening in your kitchen.
I beg, don't kill me, oh.
But then again, there is Grand Pure Soya Oil, made from pure soya seed. Grand Pure Soya Oil is cholesterol-free, which makes it ideal for the heart and health conscious. It neither foams nor fumes, neither does it congeal even at low temperature. Grand Pure Soya Oil is also endorsed by the Nigerian Heart Foundation as heart-friendly oil.
Let me go and get my own Grand Pure Soya Oil, Joe. Oil that doesn't smell or sleep.
Grand Pure Soya Oil, a heart-friendly oil you've always known.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Answers with Dr. Reju, where we try to clarify critical life issues. So we'll get back to JD for his second question.
Yes, my second question was the issue of when the issue teenagers mostly have their parents comparing them with other children.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. That they sort of, when they find themselves, maybe you've done something and then they say somebody else doesn't do that. Or, you know, is that what you're saying?
You say, how can you be coming third in class when your mate
Oh,
first in his
okay.
own class?
How many heads does he have?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. You know, and you know, again, I'll go back to the motive, right? Why your parent would do that. Because your perception of that might be, you know, because the question is why will, so we have already, you know, said that he's trying to embarrass me or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but the foundation, like I said, the motive, why your parents would do anything. First of all, your parents love you. They want the best, you know, out of you. And they are always very, very protective. And again, for that question, they want to be able to brag about you. And they don't want anybody being in front of you. You know? So that has to be established first. But that does not mean that comparing people is good. Right? But again, it can come good and it can come bad. Depending on how you perceive it. But most times, teenagers see that when they compare them, they feel embarrassed. Especially if it's in public or something like that, right? And then, you know, you don't want to be rebuked in public. They don't want to, you know, or scolded, right, in public and all this kind of thing. So it's a question of, why don't we try and get into the mind of our parents? Because for me, that should come like a challenge. You know, that should come like I can be better than this. Like like Anthony interjected that the other person doesn't have two heads. You know, you can either take that as something that depresses you or something that challenges you. You know, and when you feel embarrassed by statements being made about you, it is not really the statement, it's actually how you feel about yourself. Your child won't just be like that. Nobody is born that way. Being comfortable in one's skin is a product of a sustained continual affirmation by people that people respect. And the opinion of parents on their words, it matters a lot. I remember a friend of mine years ago when I think we were in A levels. He had this sign in his room, and it's about his parents. He said, when I'm right, everybody is quiet. When I'm wrong, everybody talks. That is the only time the parents actually say anything about him. It's not when he brings back a good result. When he brings back a good result, it's as if it's normal. When the result is bad, that's when they keep talking. So affirmation is something that has to be done intentionally. And I think we were discussing something off air. Was it yesterday or something? When maybe we had a meeting somewhere about that 4-14 window.
Oh, yes.
That whatever you don't teach your kids between the age of 4 and 14, you have lost the opportunity of crafting any kind of thing into them. And the tendency is for them to learn it from the inaccurate sources. Because there's something that has to come from the mouth of the parents. For example, in our culture, it's the parents that name, it's all over the world, not even our culture. It's the parents that name the child. That means you give the child identity. The child comes from your loins. You are the source. So what you say to that child, it matters a lot. Whatever anybody says outside. I always like to give a biblical, an example about this popular story of the prodigal son. When the prodigal son was coming back home, that story had it that the father saw him afar off. You have to understand, what happens in that kind of context. What the father was trying to protect, he didn't want anybody to tell that child anything before he says something. Right? If anybody had accosted that boy before getting him and said, look at you, you are a failure, that's what that boy would believe. But the father was on the lookout. He must hear me first. You must hear me first. So that even at the most down times of your child's life, you must still be able to come up with a word of affirmation. But you see, today in our culture, we sort of want the whole world to see how good our kids are. But you see, that goodness, we don't want it to be theirs. We want it to be ours. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah.
It's not that we want our kids to be good for themselves. We want our kids to be good so that we can be proud.
We can have status, yeah.
Exactly. And that's why we get it all mixed up. So we're not working on the kids for them. We are working on the kids for us. So even some things that the kid is comfortable with, if we are not comfortable, we just nail it. We just denounce it. So it's so important. It's so important that parents understand that their kids will have identity crisis when they don't do intentional affirmation. When you don't give a pet name to your kid, you don't have times when you just let down your ears and you just sort of have fun, you throw jokes, you throw banters and all those kind of things. And then when it's time to be firm, boy knows, girl knows that no, this is not fun time, right?
Yeah, and it's just interesting you mentioned this because we also have the scourge of parents wanting children to go read some courses, that children are not really interested in.
Yeah. That is, that we have mentioned on this program before.
Yeah.
That it's hellish, it's evil, right? Because you rob the world of its variety. I don't like it when, because I'm a lawyer, my kid I remember a lawyer that I was advising against that. He said, who will inherit my chamber? I said, who cares? Who cares? You build the chamber for yourself. You build the chambers for yourself. Go ahead. Get a staff to inherit it. Mentor another lawyer. Why turn someone into a lawyer? And you don't also know that if you have to force your word to read a particular course, again, you've not done your parenting right. Because you are given the opportunity to actually, if you throw those things along the line of that child when he's growing up, he can naturally grow into it. And she will never say, my parents asked me to read this. Right? Yeah. Because you can actually create the environment when you will like that thing. You can. But sometimes we don't understand how much influence we wield. You are the first set of people that's meeting this child. The child comes like a blank sheet of paper. Whatever you write there, it becomes indelible. But many times we don't write nothing when we should write, or we write in pencil. You can actually give that child the opportunity to explore. Yeah. To know that life is about variety, to explore and then come to his own, come to our own. Because I remember we said it on this program when we were discussing this, that there's a lecturer at University of Jos here who is in lecturer in Faculty of Medical Sciences. I don't know if that's the name they call it. Said there are medical students in UJ today who are having mental issues because they can't cope. Because these guys were not even wired for that level of academic complexity. They are forced by their parents to read medicine because they want to be parents of a doctor. So that's really critical. Yeah. Because whatever a child is doing, the child must be able to own it. That this is my idea. If it's my parents' idea, he can't be best in it.
This has been fantastic stuff coming from Awdr. We're going to continue this particular session next week. Have a lovely day all. See you next week by 5 p.m.
Give us a call or chat us on WhatsApp on 081-4456-9000. Check out our website and interact with us on www.answerswithdrredu.com. Like our Facebook page, Answers with Dr. Redu, or send us an email at answerswithdrredu@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are @Dr. Redu Answers. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Answers with Dr. Redu, where you can get all our episodes. Join us again on Answers with Dr. Redu, where critical life issues are clarified.